From Kansas State University, this is Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here. And coming up today, K-State's Glynn Tonsor and James Mitchell will talk about their research on cattle producers and buyers' willingness to adopt cattle traceability. They sought out the economic factors that most greatly influence that decision for consideration as traceability policy is developed. Also today, you'll meet the new head of the Animal Sciences and Industry Department here at K-State. Mike Day talks about how the national recognition of the department as a stronghold in the livestock, meat, and food sciences attracted him to this post. And later this week's horticulture segment, K-State's Jared Hoyle will talk about readying for fescue lawn overseeding or renovation in early fall. All this and more next on Agriculture Today.
Hamburgers, roast, ribs, steak, or whatever you prefer. Beef, it's what's for dinner. Kansas cattle farmers produce 7.5 million head of cattle per year. It takes about 7 tablespoons of peanut butter to get the same amount of protein in 1 serving of lean beef. Support your local Kansas farmers and ranchers. Eat beef. This message was brought to you by the K-State Animal Sciences Leadership Academy participants.
Good to have you aboard again for another Agriculture Today. The last couple of weeks, we've been previewing that major informational event coming up here at K-State next week, the annual Risk and Profit Conference, put on by the K-State Agricultural Economics Department, by way of featuring several of the breakout sessions that will comprise a large part of that conference. Right here, a look at another such breakout session topic, very timely in that there's a great deal of attention being paid now to animal disease traceability, in this case in the cattle industry, and a new study out of K-State takes a look at establishing a value on that traceability. Joining us now from Agricultural Economics at K-State, Glynn Tonsor and James Mitchell. Glynn, first of all, because traceability has become such a high-profile item, you and James thought it would be important to attach an economic perspective on it.
Yeah, so most of our listeners know the discussion about cattle traceability and animal ID is not new, but many would suggest that we still have things we need to understand and can make more progress on the level of traceability capacity in the U.S. beef cattle industry. At the same time, Lee Schultz, who's on this segment regularly for several of our listeners at Iowa State, is actually a colleague on this project. And more generally, Lee, James, and I have been working for some time now on a broader USDA grant that's looking at animal disease issues. And we're not going to talk about all of them now, but in the spirit of that is understanding where livestock are and the ability to track them over time across owners and space, which is really what traceability and animal ID allow you to do, is central to the ability to respond in the event of an adverse animal health event. That's the motivation for this. And
so James will bring you in and have you outline further the study, its specific aim, and more or less establishing what traceability means in the marketplace to buyers and sellers of cattle, correct?
Yeah, so when we think about traceability, USDA program designers are really concerned about increasing our response time to diseases, preventing disease losses. But as we know, those were most in the cattle industry interested in making money, right? And so you have kind of like this conflicting story here of trying to make an effective traceability program, but also trying to incentivize people to use this program, because for a traceability program to be effective, you need high enrollment both at the animal level and at the producer level. And so what this study really tried to look at was how does program design and market incentives act together to hopefully try and increase participation in electronic traceability program. And so when I say private incentives, we're talking prices. So what we call feeder cattle sellers in this paper are those that are going to be marketing cattle with some form of traceability. And then you've got buyers, so feedlots, stockers, backgrounders are going to be purchasing these cattle with different forms of traceability. So we're looking at what kind of premium would a cow-calf producer need to adopt this kind of a program, and is that premium even feasible for a feedlot to want to pay that to receive cattle with that same form of traceability?
So how do you get at those values? For this is somewhat uncharted territory, isn't it?
Yeah, so using producer surveys, we presented cow-calf producers, backgrounders, stockers, feedlots with scenarios where they could choose among different traceability options. And then based on their answer to those questions, we can back out how they value specific traceability attributes.
So what were some of those traceability options that you included, if you would?
So kind of the benchmark here is visual traceability. So that's applying like a visual ear tag like you'd normally see. We also consider the option where a producer could select not to do anything, so no form of traceability, or some form of electronic traceability, which is timely, as that's kind of the direction USDA wants to take the current traceability program in the U.S.
And you included the costs of implementation as part of that, right?
Yeah, so for a feeder cattle seller, so a seed stock operation or a cow-calf operation, we've got that implementation and cost, so the per head cost of using a traceability system. And then from the buyer's perspective, we treat the feeder cattle premium discount as their primary cost of adopting this traceability system at the feedlot level.
Then you tried to cross-reference all of this information to actually pin down what inspires either party to take part in a traceability program?
Yeah, so kind of a cool thing about this project is we can attach values to specific traceability attributes to see what trait or attribute of a traceability system is most important to a producer when they're deciding to either adopt this or procure feeder cattle with some form of traceability.
So as an example, Eric,
Sure.
is we allow for the traceability systems here to be fully managed by the government, to be private, or to be a partnership of public and private. Because you can envision, and these systems do exist, is that's three different ways a animal traceability system could be rolled out. And we do not anticipate that producers, whether they are a cow-calf feeder cattle seller or a feedlot feeder cattle buyer, are going to view those the same. Some have strong preferences towards a strong role for the private industry or maybe a partnership or whatever. Those are what we're referring to as these different attributes that could vary in reality, and we're controlling for and identifying those producer preferences for that. So it's beyond just the cost of implementing, which is a key piece, obviously, and we've talked about that. James described that well. But also at some level is what's the substitution, if you like, between a higher cost system and me getting the managing entity, the role of the government, the way I would like. There are trade-offs there on producer voluntarily enrolling. That's what we're describing here as a voluntary decision by producers. Trying to understand that, I would just call it a private market for traceability. So those are the cool kind of trade-offs that we're trying to get at here to better inform the likelihood of voluntary participation in traceability markets going forward.
Well, then, what did the two of you find as the most important factors that will drive that adoption decision in as far as traceability?
So an unsurprising but still important thing to note is for feeder cattle sellers, they are more sensitive to the cost of implementing a traceability system than they are the premium or discount they might receive for selling cattle with some form of traceability. On the other side of that, for feeder cattle buyers, they are more price sensitive to the cost or the premium discount they would have to pay to receive cattle with some form of traceability than they are the premium discount that they might receive moving forward. And so when you think about sellers, I mean, that's not entirely surprising because that cost of implementing a traceability program, that's more than just the physical cost of purchasing a tag and implementing a tag. That can be changes in how you manage animals. That could be changing your record-keeping system, how you process animals, things like that. So that cost is a very important aspect for those that are making that first adoption decision.
And Eric, I will add to that is it's not surprising, and others have found that cost is central, but a key reason I think for that is there's some certainty on the cost. We know tags cost this. We know we've got to handle the animals to put the tags in and like that. But the benefits of these systems are less certain. So for some producers, there's a clear benefit, a managerial benefit or a marketing benefit. There's some probability that we will have an animal health event that we need that info on and so forth. But in general, the benefits of these systems are less known and certain than the cost. And therefore, it shouldn't be surprising that the cost of participating has a bigger marginal impact on participating than what we present as benefits, which are higher cattle prices here.
So you have these differing incentives depending on the party. What does this say then about increasing the odds of implementing a system and making it more palatable to all parties? Could you draw anything from your study toward that end?
as Glynn touched on, we consider different managing entities, different characteristics such as that. And then there's these private incentives, right? So what we show in the paper is if you just focus on those private market incentives and isolate the effects of that, what does participation look like? If you ignore those private incentives and just focus on program design, then we back out what participation is under those scenarios. And what we find is you need both of those aspects to work together to get participation to a level that would be deemed desirable.
So you can take that conclusion and suggest that it could be the basis for further discussions on the policy level in implementing traceability. Is that correct, Glynn?
Very much so. So, there are ongoing discussions, and I alluded to earlier, this is a multi-year effort. There's been multiple USDA programs in this space, and there are discussions, for example, and sometimes they're state-level programs, sometimes they're national, where tags are given out for free, as an example. Well, implicitly, that is a version of a cost share. So, putting, as James noted, the tag itself is not the total cost of participating, but it's a component of the cost. So that is an example of the government doing a cost share with producers trying to encourage participation. Our work can help us understand how influential those cost shares will be. So if you increase basically how many producers get that cost share, or beyond just a tag cost share, how much more uptake voluntarily would you expect? That's the direct policy implication from this. And there's budget realities from that, because that would speak to how big the budget would need to be for a cost share program in order to hit a given participation target. Mm-hmm. And the punchline ad is it would take a fair number of resources because there's some hesitation by producers to participate.
It really is an interesting topic and interesting work in chasing down the value of animal disease traceability to cattle producers via the market mechanisms and how those systems are set up. And congratulations on this work. Thanks to the both of you for coming by and telling us about it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Agricultural economists Glynn Tonsor and James Mitchell with us. Once again, they will present their findings on this work at the aforementioned Risk and Profit Conference at Kansas State University next week, Thursday and Friday, August the 22nd and 23rd. And producers, you still have time to take part. Go to agmanager.info and register right away. agmanager.info. You'll find all the details on the entire program right there likewise. It'll take place here on the K-State campus next week. Agriculture Today. We'll be back in a few moments with more on the K-State Radio Network.
What is radon? Home exposure to radon gas is the leading cause of lung cancer death in the United States for non-smokers. In Kansas, 1 in 4 homes will test at or above the EPA action level. The Surgeon General recommends all homes be tested and fixed if necessary. Visit kansasradonprogram.org for more information. Test, fix, save a life. This message brought to you by the Kansas Radon Program, the Kansas Association of Broadcasters, and this station.
Agriculture Today continues now here on the K-State Radio Network, and it is our distinct pleasure on this segment of the broadcast to introduce to you the newly named head of the Department of Animal Sciences and Industry here at K-State. It is our very first time to meet, greet, and talk with Mike Day. Mike was named to that position here earlier in the year, and he just took over as of this week that post. And Mike, welcome to K-State, first of all.
Thank you.
You're familiar with a lot of the folk around here, though. We might point that out right away.
Oh, sure. Yes, several of the faculty, some of the staff I've interacted with in graduate school and research, actually worked with one or two of the people here in my previous job. So, yeah, I know them pretty well.
We bring you in to have you share a bit of your story so folks out there can get to know you and your background. You are, by training, a beef reproductive physiologist, correct?
That's right. Beef cattle reproductive physiologist. That's what I did for about 35 years, actually, before I went to the University of Wyoming in a similar position that preceded this one.
But the bulk of your time was at the Ohio State University.
That's correct. I was at Ohio State University, teaching, doing research, worked with a wide range of factors that affect fertility of beef cows and beef heifers, worked with estrus synchronization. Some of you may use one of the programs we developed at Ohio State. It's one of those you see when you open the back of any AI stud book for semen purchase. So, so kind of a wide range of work in fertility and estrus synchronization.
What you just described there, do you consider that one of the hallmarks of your research experience at Ohio State?
Oh, on the applied side,
right.
Yes. The hallmark from the applied side is working with estrus synchronization, working with development of one of those products, particularly use of the cedar and how we can best use those to synchronize estrus. On the other end of the spectrum, a lot of our work tied in with puberty in heifers and how we should develop replacement heifers so that they get off to a good start in the cow herd and stay in the cow herd for many years. So those are kind of two ends of the spectrum, but things that we look at as hallmarks.
And there's been great accomplishment on all of those scores in the last 20, 30 years.
Absolutely.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
Now you come to us from your previous stop at the University of Wyoming, where you oversaw that animal science department?
Correct. I was the department head at University of Wyoming. I was there 4 years. Really enjoyed Wyoming. A good department, good people that work there. The opportunities at K-State, though, were a big draw on my initial application to come down here and serve as department head with animal sciences and industry at K-State.
What was the appeal?
It's really broad. The range of research areas from species, all the different species that Kansas agriculture includes and the faculty to support those, the range in disciplines from food science to meat science to all those disciplines, traditional ones of the animal sciences. It was exciting to think about working in a department where we had that range of people to work with in research. The students, it's the biggest or one of the largest departments of animal sciences in the U.S., and we have students here from across the country with a wide variety of interests. And just having that opportunity to work with them. And then, of course, a big thing in Kansas that from afar I've looked at for years is the interactions with the stakeholders, with the producers, with the ag industry, kind of almost a model in my mind of how the university and how the producers can work together to improve the efficiency of production, the quality of life, all those things in agriculture. So all aspects of the land-grant mission at K-State, the teaching, the research, and the extension were a draw for me to take a look at this department and a chance to work with it and with the people that are here.
Well, Mike, as you shared with us before we went Mike's side, you're still getting your feet under you as far as the department head. You've only been here a few days.
Right.
That considered, what would you think of as the most pressing issues in livestock science or food science, meat science? What highlighted things would grab your attention initially here?
Yeah, I don't know if I would call them pressing issues, but goals. One goal is easy. We want to be the best animal science department in the country, and actually the department is well on its way in that aspect in many areas. We have a really good mix of people ranging, I mentioned before, from the food sciences through fundamental animal sciences to applied animal sciences. And I'm excited about getting that group all together and headed in a direction that'll allow us to build excellence. The people are here and they work together a lot and just trying to aid that progression, which will make us a stronger department, a more effective department.
So building upon what's there.
Building on what's there, yeah.
You undoubtedly will be getting out and about with those aforementioned stakeholders at some point in the near future, will you not?
Oh, yes. Yes, I think Dave Nichols I might be going to the Kansas Livestock Association meeting, one of the regional meetings in Emporia. So that'll be kind of my first trip out, but there's several on my calendar all ready to work with the stakeholder groups.
As you do that, what would you like to hear from those stakeholders as you perhaps get one-on-one with a group?
Oh, I think when I get one-on-one with them, I'd like to have first like to understand what they think about K-State and the animal science program, what their needs are, what we can do to help them, and actually what they may be able to do to help us as we try to make the program stronger, pull things together. So really just a dialogue of how animal sciences and industries fits in with what they do and what the possibilities are for the future.
And as you say, exciting things going on here already. It's not directly under the umbrella of animal science, but such things as the NBAF facility opening and so forth. Whole new dynamics could open up for the department, could they not?
Oh, absolutely. The NBAF thing, I really haven't thought through all the possibilities of what that will bring, but it's going to bring animal health professionals. It's going to bring talented people to Manhattan. So I think there's a lot of possibilities of how that will grow and integrate with us. Yeah. So,
Mike, in 2 months, 3 months' time, what do you hope to have accomplished by then as you settle in?
That's a good question. Honestly, in a couple of months, I hope that I have a good grasp of where we are as a department. So from an internal standpoint, where we are fiscally, have a good grasp of the facilities we have to support everything we do. Of course, the faculty and the staff and the students and grad students, and that I have a good understanding of the resources. By then, I'll know where there may be challenges. I'll know where there are strengths and where there are areas we need to work in. So, but I think with a department this size, this scope, much larger than University of Wyoming, that it'll take a month or two to really get a handle on that and plot a course. In about 2 months, we'll be trying to figure out what's the first step to guide where we're going in the future.
Last thought here, what excites you most about what's ahead, then?
I think it's the people and the interactions and here on campus, out in the state, learning about Kansas agriculture, animal agriculture, really all of it. It's the job is what excites me. I learn something new every day and meet new people and get to work with them. So, yeah, that's the most exciting part of it. Yeah.
We greatly appreciate you affording a few moments because you are on the fast track already with your schedule as you take the reins of the department. So congratulations on the appointment. Looking forward to working with you in the future, and good to have you aboard here at Kansas State University, Mike. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
He's Mike Day, and the new head of the Animal Sciences and Industry Department here at Kansas State University as of this week. As Mike said, you can meet him directly at that Kansas Livestock Association, Kansas State University Ranch Management Field Day. That's at the Moyer Ranch just north of Emporia. Later today, starting at 3:30. Just a quick reminder of what's on that agenda. Managing Old World Bluestem in the Flint Hills, exploring the possible economic advantages of using drones in livestock production, and an update on the Cattle Trace Animal Disease Traceability Program with a demonstration on site. If you'd like to learn more about the program, including directions for getting to the Moyer Ranch site, go to www.kla.org, kla.org. Agriculture Today returns with today's agricultural news headlines, plus more in a few moments here on the K-State Radio Network. For 25 years, K-State Research and Extension's Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services has been providing a no-cost, confidential place to call in and visit with an agricultural lawyer. Our experts are available to help you producers handle legal and financial issues. Explore your options and generate solutions. Call us at 800-321-3276 or visit us online. Kansas Agricultural Mediation Services. You're tuned in to the K-State Radio Network and Agriculture Today. Eric Atkinson here, and moving ahead now with today's agricultural news headlines for you. These courtesy in part of DTN. The announced delay until December the 15th of putting 10% tariffs on some imports from China has not yet resulted in any concessions from China. That according to Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. Speaking on CNBC, Ross said it was too early to determine where U.S.-China trade talks stand. While further phone conversations are on tap between U.S. and Chinese officials, Ross said that no date has been set for in-person discussions. Expectations have been that the next in-person talks would take place in September in Washington. Now, the comments from Ross run counter to the expectation by some that China could again import some U.S. agricultural products as a show of good faith. If so, President Trump could postpone tariffs on the additional Chinese products still threatened with tariffs as of September the 1st. The president continued to berate China this week for not making such purchases and suggested that the tariffs might force China to do so. The National Association of Wheat Growers, meantime, took umbrage yesterday with the president's criticisms about trade with Japan. The president made the comments at a rally that the U.S. buys cars from Japan, but Japan, as he put it, just buys wheat. The president added, and quoting here, "That's not a good deal, and they don't even want our wheat. They do it because they want us to at least feel that we're okay. You know, they do it to make us feel good." Again, quoting the president directly there. Now, the National Association of Wheat Growers took to the president's favorite social media platform, Twitter, and offered a retort, saying that Japan does not buy U.S. wheat because they want us to feel okay. They buy it because it's the highest quality wheat in the world. Japan, by the way, the number one market for U.S. wheat exports on average, holding just over 50% of the market. The U.S. exported about 2.6 million metric tons of wheat. That would be 97 million bushels in the 18-19 marketing year that ended on May the 31st. Senate Finance Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley of Iowa says he wants to use Security and Exchange Commission filings to highlight the extent to which major oil companies are benefiting from the small refiner exemptions relative to their renewable fuel standard obligations. Confidentiality provisions currently preclude the EPA from disclosing specific information on individual SREs granted. However, the agency is seeking comment on making additional information available to the public. Information they maintain is not confidential business information. More prevented planting acres plus temporary changes in USDA rules on cover crops have resulted in an expansion of cover crop acreage this summer. We get an update on that from the USDA's Gary Crawford.
For years now, soil conservation experts like USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service Chief Matt Lohr have tried to convince farmers of the benefits of planting off-season cover crops.
It just does a great job managing the soil erosion and controlling our weeds and pests to really improve that soil health.
And this season is bringing more producers into the cover crop fold, with rains and floods preventing farmers from planting their usual crops on almost 19.5 million acres. In fact, demand for cover crops is causing a little bit of a problem in some places.
There's been a real drain on a cover crop seed.
Stephen Peterson helps run the USDA's Farm Service Agency. He told us
some producers are actually, to make sure that they're putting a cover down, they're actually using some of that seed that they intended for either soybeans or corn. They're just planting it beyond the late planting period, which doesn't necessarily allow it to be considered a planted commodity, but they're using that as a cover as well.
So far, producers have planted over 2.7 million acres of cover crops, about 30% more than this time last year, about double the 2017 number. Gary Crawford, U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
Next up for you on Agriculture Today, this week's Kansas soybean update. Awaiting with that, Greg Akagi. Greg?
Charles Atkinson from Great Bend serves as the Kansas representative on the American Soybean Association Board of Directors, and he joins us now. And Charles, ASA is now accepting applications for their Conservation Legacy Awards.
Yes, we are, and we got kind of a short turnaround here, but September 13th is when they're due, and we want to encourage everybody, all of our soybean producers, to take the opportunity to apply for the Conservation Legacy, because all of us have a legacy to share. All of us have wonderful farms out there and doing a lot of real good conservation work. And this is really just your opportunity to toot your horn and let us know what you're doing out there to conserve our resources.
Will the awards be given based on a regional basis, depending on where you're at in the U.S.?
Yes, they are split up in regions, and Kansas has been very fortunate to win the Midwest region several times, and we compete with some pretty outstanding states as far as their conservation work, but we've had a lot of winners over the years, and we really want to encourage everybody here in the Midwest region to apply.
I'm sure in the past there have been some very impressive conservation practices that have been awarded one of the legacy awards that you've seen throughout the years.
Oh, there has been. I mean, we've got guys that are, of course, running no-till, the cover crop, the strip-till, and, it's also those little things that you apply that a lot of times people don't think about. Maybe you've got a few buffer strips in there. Maybe you're doing some wildlife habitat, some monarch butterfly habitat out there. Just all of those things that add to the production agriculture and add to conserving our conservation, our soils, and our waters. And we've even had some guys that had some innovative irrigation practices out there. So it's kind of an open book. We just need you to tell us what you got out there and how you're utilizing it and how it's increasing your production and conserving your resources.
The Soybean Checkoff is one of those sponsors that are proud to sponsor the Conservation Legacy Awards.
Yes, they are, and we've got other sponsors on there, and we're really proud that they understand and they recognize that conservation is important in agriculture. And we've always said that the farmers are the best stewards of the resources of soil and water, and this is just a good opportunity to showcase those efforts.
So if a farmer is interested in applying, what's the best way they can do that?
The best way they can do that is they can either contact their office, any of the soybean offices in their state, or they can go to soygrowers.com and click on the Legacy Award tab, and it'll take them right to the application.
Charles Atkinson from Great Bend serves as a Kansas representative on the ASA Board of Directors, and he joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission.
Thanks, Greg. And just to let you know right here, next week's calendar is full to the brim with K-State Agronomy Field Days all around the state. And the first in the queue is coming up next Tuesday, August the 20th, at the North Central Experiment Fall Field Day near Scandia. That'll take place at 6 o'clock in the evening at the field just west of Scandia along U.S. Highway 36. Among the topics covered, corn planting date considerations, in-furrow fertilization with soybeans, and long-term fertility research and trends. If you'd like to know more, call 785-335-2836 to find out about K-State's North Central Experiment Field Fall Field Day next Tuesday. This is Agriculture Today.
Have you ever thought about where your food comes from? If you're thinking the grocery store, think again. Facts show that the American farmer feeds more than 129 people.
They are continually increasing and improving their operations. A wide variety of crops and livestock are grown in Kansas as well as the United States, providing food to your dinner plate.
Next time you see a farmer or rancher, thank them. For more information, contact K-State Research and Extension.
Coming your way now on this Agriculture Today, our weekly venture into horticultural matters. And across the way, once more, is Research and Extension turfgrass specialist here at K-State, Jared Hoyle. For Jared, we're now into the late summer, and for those with cool season lawns, fescue lawns in particular, they might want to step up their management, you say.
That is correct. It is getting that time, believe it or not. We're hopefully getting to a little bit cooler weather. With fescue, the optimal time to do stuff to your lawn and maintain it is in the spring and the fall, so we're hitting that peak time of where it's time to seed, fertilize, and get a good healthy stand of turf so it'll survive the winter and then stick around through next summer too.
Let's start with fertilization here at this stretch of the season. How early should one put down a fertilizer? Do they need to be somewhat careful about this?
Yes, so you don't ever want to jump the gun with it. But we are getting to the time where we really want to feed the fescue and get some good root growth on it. So we like to say September, October, and November is our months we really like to shoot for. So in September you would come in for a fescue lawn and you're wanting to put down maybe about a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. Repeat that in November. and then the same thing in October. And that gives you, a total of 3 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet throughout that window of opportunity or growth, so to say. And you can do that a couple different ways. It can be done as a quick release and put a pound down every month because it's not going to stick around or get used up really quick, or you can do a slow release product where it'll release over a certain amount of time. And then if that's the case, then maybe you do 2 applications because it'll last a little longer. But there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But right now, in the fall, September, October, November, we want to get a total of 3 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet.
The timing is important, though. You don't want to put that first application down too early, i.e. here in the heat of August, right?
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of potential, and then it'll run out of steam if you go out too early with your fertilizer, get used up too quickly, and so then that lawn won't have as much stored energy for the wintertime.
Yeah. How soon, then, along something of a same vein, does one want to think about overseeding a lawn that is thinned over maybe this summer or multiple years?
That is same time frame. So we're looking at, September is a great time to come in and do your lawn renovations just because the environment's right and that's more conducive to growth of that lawn. So if we come in September, you can do a couple different ways. If you just lost some from the heat or maybe some brown patch over the summer, then you can overseed, which means you're not really removing what is there. You're just adding to it and thickening it up. Or you can do a complete renovation where you'd kill everything that's existing and then kind of start all over. But September is a great time for that.
In the case where one is overseeding, would they want to couple that with an aerification to make sure that seed to soil contact is adequate?
That is correct. So we kind of have a couple steps we go through when it comes to overseeding. You would go out and you'd mow the lawn down a little bit shorter. Don't scalp it completely all the way down, but you can mow it down. That helps that seed get down to the soil. Then you would come in with your aerifier, and so if you have any compaction, this is a perfect time to do it. You would aerify your lawn. Then you can come over it with a verticutter or slicer type thing. That'll really open it up, and then you would broadcast your seed. You don't always have to use that seeder slicer, but if you have super thin areas, it'll really help get that seed down to the ground. Now, if you're just thickening it up, you want to look at maybe 3 to 5 pounds of fescue seed per 1,000 square feet, and if you're starting over, you can go to 7 or 8 pounds per 1,000 square feet.
But starting over is a little more dramatic, obviously. You're going to essentially be tilling up that lawn completely.
Yes, and you can get as extensive as you want with it, with completely tilling the lawn, and then you would add your amendments, your fertilizer as you're tilling, and then you would, rake the seed bed level, broadcast the seed, and kind of cover it with a little bit of soil, just dragging a rake through it. But it is more invasive to that lawn. And so if you have a pretty good healthy lawn or you lost just a little bit, overseeding is the way to go. That seed will get down in there and it'll fill in those thin areas. And that also encourages some of the varieties that are more fit for Kansas lawns. So you can go get those types of varieties and feed those into your lawn so you have a healthier lawn in the future.
And as far as knowing which of those varieties are best suited for Kansas, is that included on the label, or does one need to do some homework?
Have to do a little bit of homework. It's not as easy as going out and just buying it off the shelf. Yeah. We do have some through the horticulture website and through the turfgrass website of recommended varieties. And not always are those varieties going to be available that year. It really depends on what varieties produce seed that year at the farms. And so if you see some recommendations from 2017, 2018, and those are the varieties that are available, those work just as well too. It's more commonly just the varieties that are available throughout that year. And they will be listed on that label of what varieties are in that blend.
Very good. You mentioned the window of time for overseeding a fescue lawn. September through at least part of November will allow you that flexibility. But is there an inherent advantage in seeding as early as possible, Jared?
I always like to err on the earlier than the later within that window. than the later. Just the fact that you can control it a little bit better. You can produce a healthier plant before the wintertime. With the later seedings, it's riskier due to early frost, unexpected cold weather, and any freezing, which if that plant is not mature or grown up, it just can't withstand that quick turnaround of temperatures.
Very well. Well, here we are a couple of weeks ahead of September, amazingly enough. So what folks need to do right now is map out a plan for all of these steps.
That's correct. And if you go to the ksu.edu/turf website, there's some great publications on the left side, and it will step-by-step go through these plans for tall fescue lawns. And there's also information on that website about the recommended varieties.
Very well. Again, it's as simple as going to ksu.edu/turf. Always appreciate the input, Jared. Thanks.
Thank you.
Turfgrass specialist Jared Hoyle, K-State Research and Extension, along with us for this week's horticulture segment, which you hear every Thursday right here. And with that, our time is away for today. Thanks to you for tuning in, and we'd invite you to be right back here with us tomorrow, won't you? Until then, Eric Atkinson here, bidding you a good day from the campus of Kansas State University. You've been listening to Agriculture Today over this, the K-State Radio Network.